So this is going to be your Biology 121 course, General Biology. The General Biology 1 class, the name is obviously incredibly generic. The content of the course is really aligned more with what we'd call intro cell biology. So it's really a cellular biology course, cells being the smallest unit of life. So that's is biology. A lot of people think when they see the topics that it's a lot of chemistry, and it is because it's the biology of the cell, which is the structure of the cell and the activities that take place in the cell. What I'm going to do right now is go over sort of introduction to the course and a sort of a video syllabus. So you're going to have this as a reference to what is the course and how to go through the course. You're going to have the actual print syllabus, or in this case it'll be digital. You'll have the file of the syllabus that's static, and then you're going to have also in Blackboard a video where I go through the Blackboard shell. You'll just hear my voice, but I'll be opening up the files and showing you where the content is, and it'll be sort of another sort of video extension of the syllabus. So the syllabus is just a print static document that's going to list all these things that I'm pretty much going to talk about now and then show you in the Blackboard video. This is how most of your lecture content is going to be presented for the course. So I have lectures made like this where I'm using a light board. So I can draw on this board and we start to cover the topic. So exam 1, for example, is going to be mostly chemistry review. So chemistry, and again, is biological. So what does that mean? It means that we're really focused on just a few atoms in particular. So not the whole periodic table. So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. All right, these four elements. This you're going to see all the time, and you're going to have to know everything about those four elements. But that's it. You have the whole periodic table and a regular chemistry course. Here we're just focused on these. There's a few others that we add in, phosphorus and sulfur, and sodium and potassium, but really this is going to be the major focus of the chemical structures that you have to learn. They're going to have these elements in it, and that's it. So we'll go all the way back to the beginning, talking about atoms, and electrons and electron shells and bonds and bonding, and then we'll start to build molecules, and then those molecules that we're going to focus on are the ones that actually build cells, so build the structure of the cell. So the course is then going to be structured the way a cell is structured. So we're going to start off with the chemistry in general. Then we're going to get into, as we start to build a cell, the outer part of the cell is going to be the cell membrane. So it's going to be, exam 2, cell membrane. So we'll look at the chemicals that make up the membrane, the structure of the membrane, movement of particles across the membrane, how the membrane's a barrier, holding some things in the cell, keeping some things out of the cell, actively pushing things in both directions, pushing certain things out, pulling certain things in, how the energy is involved in that, how cells use the membrane to stick to other cells, how cells use the membrane to communicate with other cells. So all the membrane sort of topics will be exam 2. Exam 3, we get into metabolism. So this is going to be enzymes, chemical reactions, how the reactions occur, how molecules called enzymes help speed up and carry out these reactions within the cells. And then we're going to look at some of the core reactions that are common among all living things. So from bacterial cells to plant cells to human cells, fish cells, everything has certain chemical processes in common, everything that's alive. And so we're going to kind of focus on some of these particular topics and go into them. So starting off an introductory level of detail, then we're going to add a little more and a little bit more. All right. We'll look at how cells get their energy molecules and how they process one kind of molecule to make another kind of energy molecule. And that's we'll kind of go through the structures in the cell that are involved and the reactions that are involved. And then finally, on the last exam, we'll get into DNA and genetics. So we'll have some really traditional kind of inheritance, simple Mendelian genetics inheritance patterns. We're going to kind of tie that back then to the molecular structure, of the DNA, the process of DNA replication, transcription, translation, gene expression. So what are genes? How do they get expressed? What is the process of it? And go through kind of all that. So that's going to be kind of the layout of the course. It's going to be 4 exams. Each exam is going to be 100 points. So that's each. The fourth exam will, though, be 150. So it's going to have an extra 50 points added to it that are cumulative. So exams 1, 2, and 3, some of the questions from those exams will also appear in the final exam. Now, because this is going to be done online, what you're going to have is each exam is going to have 2 parts. So there's going to be 2 parts for each exam. You're going to have a multiple choice part that is going to be all online, and it's going to be timed. So I'm going to have a list of questions. I'm going to give you a certain amount of time. The amount of time I give you is enough to read all the questions, read all the answers, and if you know the answer, you click the answer, and then enough additional time to kind of go back and check a few of those, but not much more than that. So you have to study for the exams, even though technically you'd be taking them at home or in a library or in some desk space where it's kind of quiet. The advantage is going to be the timed aspect of as well. It's going to have sort of 2 parts. One is there's going to be a set time in that you have, say, 50 minutes. That's it to do the whole exam. And I'll tell you specifically, I may adjust the time, so don't worry about 50 minutes at this moment right now, but for each exam, I'll give you the specific time that you have. Then you're going to have a window of time of like when you can take the exam. So once we finish the block 1 material, I'll say the exam is online. It's open now, and it's going to be open, say, for 4 days. This is just an example. And then any time within those 4 days, it could be midnight, it could be 3 a.m., it could be 8 a.m., it could be noon. It doesn't matter when it is. It could be on the Monday or the Tuesday or the Wednesday. Whatever the time is that I have for it, you go in and you take the exam. Okay, this way you can pick the environment that you take it in. Everything about that place can be optimized for you. You are in control of that aspect of it. Right? So if you don't have a good place to go, you need to find a place where you can go to actually do that, where you're not going to be disturbed for that period. All right. When the time is up, if you don't answer some questions, then they're just going to be zeros. Okay. Everyone, I've done this many, many times now. I've done this last semester when we had to, when we went all online, but I've done this other semesters as well. The time I give, almost no one ever really runs out of time, right? There's plenty of time to go through it if you've studied. If you haven't studied and you are trying to look up the answers, you will then not have enough time. So you'd have to study for this. The second part of the exam is going to be a written part. And the written part of the exam, you'll have a pretty big window of time to do this. This will be considered a completely sort of open book, open resource aspect, which means that if I ask you to sketch a cell membrane and label all the molecules in the membrane and ask you some other questions about it, you really need to have every single detail included, or you're going to lose a lot of points, because I know you can just look up any picture anywhere from the resources I give you to other resources as well. So I'm going to expect a high quality and a high level of detail for those written answers, right? Some of them will be problems you have to figure out, so you won't be able to look up the answer necessarily, but you'll have a pretty good window of time to just do this. You'll write all the things out, you'll draw these things out, you'll then get a copy of that you digitize by either taking pictures of it or scanning, and then you'll upload it into Blackboard where I'll be able to grade it. So you're going to have, every exam is going to be the same once you get started. The second aspect of the exam or assessments here are going to be quizzes. There's going to be almost every single week you'll have an online quiz. The nice thing about those quizzes, one, is that they're multiple choice and they're going to be very similar to the timed multiple choice questions. You'll see some overlap between the actual questions found in the quizzes and the multiple choice part of the exam. So it's a little bit of a preview of what to expect. So when people panic, I don't know what to expect on the exam. Yes, you do, because you're going to have, say, 4 quizzes before you have that first exam, and the questions on those quizzes will be very much like the quizzes on the exam. The quizzes you're going to be able to repeat 3 times. So they're open book and open-ended. They'll be open from whenever I open them up, and then they end the last week of class. So you can do quiz 1, forget about doing quiz 2, do quiz 3, and then 2 months from now say, oh my gosh, I never did quiz 1, I have a 0 on it. Didn't help you if they study for exam 1, but you can still go back and do it and get the grade on it. The second thing is, if you do the quiz, and so you get 7 out of 10, there'll be 10 questions on each individual quiz. You go up and you look the answers. You look up the answers for the 3 that you got wrong and say, oh, here, I know, now I know what it is. So you can redo the quiz the second time. Now you get 10 out of 10. The grade book's going to show 8.5. It'll give you the average. So you're going to have the average of all of your attempts for the quiz. And you can do it 3 times, up to 3 times, no more than 3. But you can repeat the quiz. So it's kind of like homework. It's graded homework, an assignment for you to do that's going to help you study for the exams. So there are, I don't remember exactly how many, 12 or 14 of these. So it's going to be, overall, they're going to be worth more than an individual exam. So you really need to do these quizzes. They're going to help you in the course. If you don't do them, they're also going to really hurt you in the course. So make sure you do the online quizzes. They'll be in a little folder. I'll show you in Blackboard. It'll just say weekly quizzes, and you'll go through and click one, and I'll be giving you reminders as well about the quizzes being available. So you have a list of topics that we're going to cover. You'll see that in the syllabus kind of written out. You're going to have folders in Blackboard, which I'll show you as I do a voiceover. I'm going to navigate you through Blackboard. You can have a folder that says Exam 1. Folder says Exam 2, Exam 3, Exam 4. In each folder, you're going to have a video, or first off, you're going to have a list of topics. So you're going to have a list of every single topic that's on that exam. And then you're going to have links underneath those topics to videos like this. So one is going to be my lecture on atoms and electrons. So you'll just see a video like this, and I'm talking about atoms and electrons and drawing on a board and listing off terms. That's the lecture. You need to watch it. You could watch it once, you could watch it twice, you could watch it 10 times. You could watch it for 30 seconds. You could fast forward through stuff you've already had in the chemistry course and say, I know this, I know this, I know this. And when you're up to a point where you're like, what is that? I don't know. Then you focus on it. So you're going to have complete control, of the lectures. Essentially, when do you have lecture? When you want to have lecture. However, you need to schedule times for yourself when you're doing this, okay? Because it's not going to be come and meet at a specific period of time. You have to schedule the meeting time with yourself and Blackboard. All right, when are you going to do the class? All right, because if you wait until an exam is coming up in a few days and you really haven't watched any of the lecture videos, there's going to be way too much material. You will not be able to be successful. You have to be doing this little by little. So the good thing is you can watch a video at midnight. You can watch it at 6 a.m. You can watch it on weekends, whenever you want. So that's the nice thing about it, is you do have that kind of control. It's just that you have to take control and actually do it and do the work. So for all the topics in the course, you'll have a lecture like this where I'm talking and drawing on a board. You'll have a PowerPoint that's just static that you can read through. You'll also have a video where I'm going through the PowerPoint just talking. So you'll just hear my voice and you'll see the PowerPoint, and I'll show you pictures, and it'll say, this is a very important sketch of enzyme activity. You should be able to draw it. You should be able to label it, that type of thing. Maybe there'll be another picture. I'll say, this is interesting, but it's not all that important. You don't need to worry about it. So that way, as you go through the PowerPoints, if you listen to my voiceover PowerPoints, you'll then get clued in on what's very important, take notes on, what is kind of, interesting and adds to the course, but isn't the most essential thing. Before each exam, you'll also have a list of terms as a study guide and some questions, so like the essay kind of questions, sketching things that are related to these written ones that you can use to study and practice and prepare for the exam. So you'll find all that in every single folder. It'll repeat over and over again. I'm also going to give you have a book for the course, and it's really one of the most widely used books in biology, definitely anywhere in the United States. I don't know about the world, but it's one of the most well-used books in studying biology at the college level in the US for sure. So it's a very good resource. But I'm also going to give you links after the topics that you can just click on, and it'll open up a web page that's for a free biology textbook that will have a lot of the same information. They're not as encompassing, as the stuff that you're going to have in your book. So some of them will be very simple, but you'll have information. And I'll also give you some links to lectures by other people that have information that's very similar to the content that we have in the course. You'll be able to have my lecture, somebody else's lecture. You'll have the PowerPoints. You're going to have a lot of resources. So every single exam folder, say for exam 1, is going to have a list of topics, atoms, electrons, chemical bonds, sugars, amino acids, and so on. And under each of those, there's going to be a lecture, a lecture, a lecture, a lecture. Under each of them, there'll be one that's labeled Brian lecture. That's me. Then there'll be one that's labeled, maybe Khan lectures from Khan Academy. Then there'll be some other one. Then there'll be, reading links and so forth. So that's kind of how all the content's going to go. The assessment for the lecture is like that. That's kind of related to the grading. The lab work is going to take place in a couple different ways. We are going to be trying to meet on campus for the beginning of the semester. We're going to break the class into cohorts. So I'm going to send you an email. So if you haven't seen an email from me as you're watching, after you're watching this video or before you've watched this video, you need to then go and check and see, because I should have sent you an email if you're watching this after or a day or so before the beginning of classes actually start. If you're watching this much earlier, you may not have received it yet. But you should have a video that says you're going to be in lab group, whatever, and I'll tell you the specific date that you'll first come to lab. What does that mean? That when you signed up for this course, it has a lab component, and it has a day of the week and a time of the day. That is the day of the week and the time of the day that we have lab. However, every single person is not going to come in at the same time to lab. Our lab can hold 9 people in the room with safe social distancing. So a group of you are going to come in. We're going to do lab. We're going to focus on techniques. So the first couple labs are not going to necessarily line up exactly with the lecture topics, because we're going to try to get you the learning outcomes for the lab part of this course that are related to techniques right at the start. So we can do this and get all the techniques in, get some assessment where you're actually doing things in lab, and I'm grading you as you do them. So you're going to learn skills, you're going to practice skills, you're going to put them into practice and do them. You'll get assessed on them. You'll be doing some things related to labs that we'll later do at home, or I'll give you online information about, and then you'll have something actual to draw on, some actual hands-on work physically to draw on. So the first part is look for a message about which cohort you're in. You're just going to show up on that day. And what again that means is that some of you will come during the first week of lab and actually do lab, say group 1. The others will be, say, at home. So week 1, for example, group 1 comes in, groups 2 and 3 are at home. Okay. Week 2, group 2 comes in during week 2. Now groups 3 is still at home, but now group 1 goes, is at home. And so then week 3, finally, say group 3 comes in, and I'll give you the specific date. So don't worry about understanding what I'm saying right now. Just you getting the idea that you're not all going to be crowded in one tiny little lab. You're going to be broken into smaller groups to come in to actually do some of the lab work. So that's the first part of it. The second part is when you do come in, I'm going to be giving you a kit. All right, so you're going to have a little kit to do some at-home labs. So these are going to be kind of labs you can do in a kitchen type area, a desk, a table, something like that. They're going to be versions of the normal labs that we do during the semester, but they're going to be kind of simplified with some things that I'm able to have help putting into a package that to send home with you, that then you can actually do yourself to collect data, to do a little bit of the techniques, a little more simplified without some of the more expensive equipment, but you can still actually do the labs and actually gather information, and we could turn it in. Then there's going to be these virtual labs that we're going to do, which are going to include a whole number of different things. A big part of them are going to be worksheets that I'm going to set up. That's just going to have you doing a lot of online research. We're going to look stuff up and then answer questions, do calculations, or make graphs, or do different things based on data that I send you. I'll say maybe you would have done this in lab. Well, we're not, because we can't be in there. So I'm just going to send you data. A lot of times I'll send you data actually from another class from a previous semester. So you actually be using real student data in it. And then you'll make calculations, you'll make graphs, and you'll kind of do the lab report without maybe doing some of those actual labs. And then there'll be some virtual things, which is where you're just clicking on stuff on a computer, but you actually will be learning how things work, background information. Some pretty good things will come out of some of that virtual. So there's going to be a combination of in-person in the science lab. There's going to be some at-home kits that you're going to work on to do some very simple things, but still do some things physically at home. And there's going to be a bunch of research online and virtual things that you're going to do. You will be graded on a lot of the worksheets that you're going to do. You're going to be turning in, say, pictures or images of stuff that you do from the kit. So you'll do it, you'll complete it, and you'll say maybe test pH on a bunch of substances in your house with little pH sticks that I sent home with you. And then you'll take pictures of them and you'll write up a little thing that has a list on the worksheet that says, these are the different things you tested and these were the pHs that you found. And then there'll be some questions sort of to follow up with that. And then in the on-campus work, again, there'll be some graphs you'll have to make, and then I'll be assessing specific techniques that you actually do. So that's kind of the overall class, right? The overall class is going to be focused really on cells and the chemistry behind those cells. So not on the hyper details of the chemical aspect of it, only the aspects that are very important to the biology of living things. Okay. And as far as the online part goes, you're going to have a lot of the resources, everything's going to be there in Blackboard for you. This is just the first introductory video. You'll have a Blackboard video where I'm doing a screen capture, and you'll kind of see where all the stuff is located. So make sure you watch both this video and the other one, because the other one's going to orient you to everything in Blackboard.